Hello and welcome back to another episode of Mystery Red Read. I am your host, Mystery Red, and this is my disclaimer. This beta read in Concrete is at the author's request. This video is for learning purposes. Today we're looking at a piece of original fiction. If you're new here, welcome. Please like, subscribe, or comment on a video. I do beta read in Concretes in video format so you can experience hearing your story read out loud and read a reaction. This combination provides a beta read in a truly unique format. I do both public and private videos. If you think you might be interested in a read but don't want it to be public, fear not. I do offer private reads. First chapters are free. I do have a playlist for all of my public read repeat authors, so you can go back and follow a story from the beginning. Now, business aside, we're going to dive right in here. Today we are back with Crystal Committee. We are looking at Infinite Shades chapter 19, and we are going to jump right on in. I do have a playlist for Crystal Committee, so you can go back and start this journey from the beginning and follow along with us if you should so please. Otherwise, let's enjoy the story. Sam climbs the stairs of a public high school where a few kids linger, waiting for the day to start. The handrail is cool and slick from years of use, pressing against her palm as she ascends. Near the entrance, two students perch on the railing, passing a vape, exhaling smoke into the crisp morning air. A security camera blinks red above the door, a silent watcher. Inside, the distant thump of a basketball echoes from the gym, sneakers squeaking against polished wood. The hallway air is thick with the overwhelming mix of teenage body spray, a war between Axe, Old Spice, and Exclamation, with hints of White Sands perfume clinging to the air. Ahead, a girl scrolls through her phone, leaning against a row of lockers, earbuds in, the glow of the screen reflecting off her face. She moves through the hallway and taps a classroom door, careful not to startle the older man bent over a stack of papers. I'm going to pause. It's reading really well. We got off to a really great start. I made a tiny little thing right there with with an extra space. And I'm trying to make myself stop. Am I in suggesting? I am in suggesting. Okay, we're good to go. I didn't want to start making any kind of comments or anything and having chaos. I like for you guys to be able to see what changes I have made. Upon hearing a soft rap, he looks up, recognition flashing in his eyes. He smiles. Samantha Clemens. Didn't expect to see you here. Okay, I'm going to stop and I'm going to comment on this. I'm going to compliment it. Good job. And if you notice, if I'm reading it in the voice that you intended, without having to go back and reread it, then it's going well. Okay, and I kind of feel like I was on point here, and there were some cues to me as a reader as to what voice I should use when I read this sentence out loud. Upon hearing the soft rap, he looks up, recognition flashing in his eyes. These were my cues that he's looked up, he's seen her, he recognizes her, and then he smiles, and I knew exactly what voice to read this sentence in based on those cues. Bravo. Good job. Okay, hang on, my bunny's chewing on something. Okay, now where was my spot before she so rudely interrupted me? Okay, I love the sentence. Here we go. She returns his smile. I was in the neighborhood. I can come back later if you're busy. No, it's fine. Just surprised you found me. Oh yes, the thrill of tracking down a substitute teacher. Riveting. Almost as exciting as realizing some habits never die. Neither do the people watching you use them. When we talked, you mentioned subbing for Ms. Williams. I figured I'd drop in, see if you had a chance to look at what I left at your house. I know it was a bit of cloak and dagger. You were in a hurry, I understood. Always a stickler for details. He pulls a neatly clipped stack of papers from his bag and gestures for her to take them. As you requested, handwritten, odd with all the technology these days. Obsessive, that's the word you're looking for. Da Vinci had it right. Details make perfection, and perfection is not a detail. Pausing, I forgot to set my timer. We are at 4 minutes in, so we're at 25 minutes. Where'd it go? Okay, let's see. If obsessing over details keeps me alive, I'll own it. She thumbs through the pages. Thank you. That's why I brought this to you. I need answers without going through official channels. Figured you'd appreciate a change to put that old garage lab to work. He grins. You're a rare breed, Samantha. Or should I say, Sam, please. I outgrew Samantha with my footed pajamas. She chuckles, then lowers her voice. Did you know they made them in adult sizes? I did not, he laughs. Okay, I'm just going to say, I could totally see Sam rocking some footed pajamas. That completely fits her personality. I did not, he laughs. I was going to say, Agent Clemens, Always figured you'd end up in law enforcement. Suits you. Thanks. Sam takes the compliment for what it is. Funny, everyone else saw it coming. I didn't. She shrugs. You have beautiful penmanship. It's a dying art, Dedovich says, tapping the stack of papers on his desk. Rules are for the people who need permission. Power is for those who don't ask. Great. The last thing I need is a pep talk from the shadow government. Ms. Williams had them handwrite their last report. Appears more like the work of fifth graders than that of high school seniors. Curious thought about what you were looking for in that. Some new designer drug hitting the street? Not my department if it were. Curiosity mostly. She scans the documents. That nagging attention to detail? Something felt off, but I couldn't place it. I needed someone qualified who wouldn't ask a million questions or jump to conclusions. She lifts her gaze and smirks. Glad to be of use. Washed-up university chemistry professors aren't exactly in demand these days. Ah, you're nothing of the sort. Still sharp as a razor. Sam refers to the documents. Besides, I knew you had nothing to do with what they accused. Did then, do now. Don't care what trumped-up evidence they had or how many people they bought off. Well, you're a rare one, Dedovich rounds his desk before settling in. You were always going to end up here, whether you fought it or not. Eleanor Roosevelt had it right. You'll be criticized no matter what. Might as well be strategic about it. If I had $1 for every time someone said I was meant for this, I'd be retired by now. The office chair groans, cheap, under-padded, and at least a decade past its prime. Always good when you love what you do and do what you love. She finishes the last page and hands it over. Thanks, I appreciate the help. Did that help you put your finger on it? Confirm my suspicions. The unidentified substance? Yeah, just a few parts per million, but enough that you caught it. I was looking. You said no matter how small. Still within the margins for contaminants, especially since what you gave me was probably made in Latin America. In all your research, have you ever seen anything like it? She leans against a nearby desk. I think you already know I did. That's why you came to me. He lowers his head, peering over his glasses. The coding in particular, others have taken interest. I fought the law and the law won. The clash, she shrugs. Funny how history repeats. One accusation, one fall guy. McCarthyism called, said you were late to the party. Good to know witch hunts never go out of style. The classroom smells dry, dusty, layers of pencil shavings and chalk. Willing to share? Okay, I'm pausing. So I like the detail of this, but I'm like, some of these are feeling a little bit out of order or a little late. Like, I like the details, but I'm wondering, where did I first have the impression that I kind of let it go. I was like, I wonder if that is a little bit late. I don't want to say misplaced, because like I'm liking what I'm reading, but there was a couple of details where I was like, this feels a little like an afterthought, I guess, is where something seemed a little bit delayed. Let me see if I can figure out where it began, because sometimes when I don't muse out loud as it pops up, because I'm like, oh, I'm going to let this one go. I haven't really made up my mind, or I'm undecisive. I let something go and I keep going. And then if something else pops up and I get the same sensation again, I'm like, oh, I should have said something the first time. So, but I don't want to be petty. So I kind of wait to see if a sensation is settling in to be something real and worth mentioning, if that makes sense. So let me see if I can find the spot where I first had this sensation of, well, let me find it and then we'll take it from there. Okay. This is where I got the sensation. Let's read through, and I'm going to point out the two spots, and you can see the distance between them when I do it. I might highlight them so I don't lose my place, which I've already lost from down here and didn't think about when I left it. All right. Sam, please. I outgrew Samantha with my footed pajamas. She chuckles, then lowers her voice. Did you know they make them in adult sizes? And at which time my reader brain was starting to imagine Sam in some footed pajamas as an adult, and me totally thinking, yeah, this is hilarious and adorable and absolutely something she would do. And then I read the next line. I did not, he laughs. I was going to say, Agent Clemens. Always figured you'd end up in law enforcement. Suits you. Okay, so when I read this, I completely accepted it. I did not feel out of It did not feel out of place. Everything's still going great, but this spot is a marker to where I'm going to go next. Okay, so I'm going to keep going and then I'm going to show you this next spot. Thanks. Sam takes the compliment for what it is. Funny, everyone else saw it coming. I didn't, she shrugs. You have beautiful penmanship. Okay, so the conversation's kind of flowing here. He's saying, he brings up her job, acknowledging he knows what she does. She, as we meet this character, she is saying, typical conversation, very, everybody saw it coming but me. And then she switches the conversation over to his penmanship. Okay, so my reader brain is following the flow of this conversation. We've gone from footed pajamas, a little laugh when you're first warming up the conversation, him saying something about her job. Okay, and then she says, everyone saw it coming but me. And then now we're moving on to penmanship. So she's changing the subject again. Okay. It's a dying art. Now we're on to penmanship, okay? Rules are for people who need permission. Power is for those who don't ask. So I'm not sure where this fits in because I'm following this conversation. And so I'm not really sure where this fits. It feels to me like I'm not sure. Rules, where are we talking about rules of penmanship, perhaps? I'm a little unclear, okay? But sometimes I don't get what the committee is saying. And what I chalk that up to is I chalk that up to me just not being intelligent enough for the committee, okay? Or I blame myself for not realizing, all right? I don't feel like it's an author issue or a writing issue. I feel like it's actually a me issue. And so sometimes I let go of whatever the committee says. And as thinking I'll gather the information from the context. So if I give pause here, okay, I think it might be about rules of the dying art of penmanship, perhaps. And this musing is for my author, who will know what they intended and if they need to do something. Then we're going to keep going and look at the next line. Great. The last thing I need is a pep talk from the shadow government. Pep talk. Okay. She didn't have any doubts. So I don't know that she's needing a pep talk because there was no doubt here. We just have a normal conversation. And then we've talked about writing. So I'm not really sure where this fits in. Miss Williams had them handwrite their last report. So we're still on to penmanship. Appears more like the work of fifth graders than that of high school seniors. Curious, though, about what you were looking for in that. Some new designer drug hitting the street. All right, so now he's talking about the material. So the material that the penmanship is about, what is your interest in it? So now the conversation is shifting again. Not my department if it were. Curiosity mostly. She scans the documents. That nagging attention to detail, something felt off, but I couldn't place it. I needed someone qualified who wouldn't ask a million questions or jump to conclusions. So she says why she chose him. I'm following this conversation fine. She lifts her gaze and smirks. Glad to be of use. Washed-up university chemistry professors aren't exactly in demand these days. Still going on, nice conversation flow. I'm with it. You're nothing of the sort, still sharp as a razor. Sam refers to the documents. Besides, I knew you had nothing to do with what they accused. Did then, do now, don't care what trumped-up evidence they had or how many people they bought off. Now, I do not recall if it has been alluded to before of what he is guilty of. Maybe it was in my last read, and I don't know. But at this point, when I read this, I'm starting to wonder, oops, I don't want to use pink. That's where I left off spot color. So we'll use that. I'm starting now in this conversation flow. I'm starting to wonder about what it was he was accused of. Okay, so that's my reader brain goes there. Okay, well, you're a rare one. Dedovich rounds his desk before settling in. So I'm imagining him taking a seat, and the conversation is going to flow on. You are always going to end up here, whether you fought it or not. Eleanor Roosevelt had it right. You'll be criticized no matter what. Might as well be strategic about it. So she was going to come here and get this information from him, whether she struggled with it or not, because I'm assuming because she knew this was the person she could go to. And so she is not worried about, it says Eleanor Roosevelt had a right, you'll be criticized no matter what, might as well be strategic about it. So she's not worried about whatever they've accused him of. This matters more to her. And so that's where she went. If I had $1 for every time someone said I was meant for this, I'd be retired by now. This line right here feels out of place. This is where I was ultimately getting to. It feels like it should have been up here around this conversation. Like, it feels like this internal thought should have been tucked up here between this spot and this spot. And I'm highlighting them all in yellow for you to see what I'm talking about. And I'm going to say musings and video right here. This is where I was like, okay, this feels out of place. It feels like it belongs up there. Let's see. I'm just going to type musings and video on these lines so you can quickly find them and refer to my ramblings. Okay, and we're going to keep rolling on. Otherwise, it just looked like I had fun highlighting with random sentences with a bunch of fun colors. Music and video. Okay, wow. I'm not going to lie. I'm having some matcha over here this morning trying to get this brain going because it's really getting on my nerves lately. I don't know if Earth's energy is distorting my brain. I don't know. My brain is all like full of fog and I'm trying to get it cleared up. It's driving me nuts. Could be allergies though. Like sometimes that'll do it too. Okay. So now this is where I kind of paused and was like, oh, this sentence feels mistimed. All right. I like it. I just want it somewhere else. All right, we're going to keep going. The office chair groans, cheap, under-padded, and at least a decade past its prime. Always good when you love what you do and do what you love. She finishes the last page and hands it over. Thanks, I appreciate the help. Did that help you put your finger on it? Confirm my suspicions. The unidentified substance? Yeah, just a few parts per million, but enough that you caught it. I was looking. You said no matter how small. Still within the margin for contaminants, especially since what you gave me was probably made in Latin America. In all your research, ever see anything like it? She leans against a nearby desk. Okay, I'm going to pause. So we had this back and forth dialogue with kind of no actions. For a few minutes, I'm able to follow who it is speaking. Although we have no dialogue tags, I'm kind of, there's a couple moments where I was like, I think this is this person. And so as a reader, I'm literally telling myself which person is speaking as I'm reading. So that is a distraction if you want me to be very, very, clear and detailed. So my brain is pulled from the story as it's distracted by making sure that I understand who it is that's speaking. Now, I'm kind of wondering if you could use the action of maybe she glances at the information that he's giving her. So he's giving her some answers. She's not looked at it yet, but she might scan over it knowing how brilliant Sam is. She might glance at it, scan over it, flip through a couple pages as she's talking to him, because think about it. It's really rude when people look at their phones while they're in a conversation, but people do it all the time. But if you're looking as a writer for an action for her to have during this conversation to kind of, so that it's not so-and-so said, so-and-so said, so-and-so said, that's something that you might be able to utilize as the action of her kind of looking at the material that he's giving her, not necessarily reading it in depth, but knowing Sam just has to see something once and has it forever in her mind. She could even be digesting some of it, which I'm wondering what we're going to get to. Like, I'm curious as to what's in it and if we're going to find out. But at this point, I'm thinking that's an action you might be able to use is, I'm going to say musings in video. And that is basically, she could potentially be looking at it as they're talking, which just seems like something I would be doing if I was having a conversation. Someone's just giving me this material. Obviously, she glanced at it enough to see that he had good penmanship, but, maybe while they're having the conversation, she flips through. I don't know. It's just an idea. I feel like if I'm going to point something out, I like to have a suggestion to go with it because I want it to be helpful and not just, I'm a problem solver. Yes. So let me see if I can get myself back on course. In all your research, ever seen anything like it? She leans against a nearby desk. I think you already know I did. That's why you came to me. He lowers his head, peering over his glasses. Okay, so now when I read this as a reader, I'm wondering if this line implies she knows what he was accused of, and whatever he was accused of made him exactly the person that she should go to for this information. I'm wondering if that was intentional. If it was, hats off to my author. You hit your goal, your mark. But as a reader, I'm not sure. I'm just wondering. And so that's where my reader brain went. And that's what I'm wondering right now. We're going to keep going. The coding in particular, others have taken interest. I fought the law and the law won. The clash, she shrugs. Finally, how history repeats. Funny how history repeats. One accusation, one fall guy. McCarthyism said you were late to the party. So this kind of supports that thought that I had right here when I read this line, that she's gone to him because of whatever happened that apparently was very taboo. Let's keep going. Good to know witch hunts never go out of style. So she's like, doesn't know if she's saying, she's already verbalized to him that she didn't believe whatever they accused him of. I'm just thinking it's why she went to this guy, is whatever happened is why she went to him, and she feels like it was a witch hunt. And that is her, and this, I believe, is the committee. The classroom smells dry, dusty, layers of pencil shavings and chalk. Okay, so when I read this line, I like it, okay, and it kind of sets it for me, but I wonder about the placement of it, because as I continue reading, it's almost like this is a scene setting line, where like when you first enter a room and the scent is one of the first things you notice, kind of like in the very beginning when she noticed all the heavy body spray, which, by the way, I wanted to compliment. The opening is very, very nice with the details. I can kind of visualize the whole campus. I love it. Very good job up there. And I kind of cringed at that phase that teenagers go through, and probably still young college. Shoot, some men are still out there wearing heavy body spray. Just take a shower, okay? Nobody likes all that stuff. It smells horrible. All right, but I love the detail of it because it's so real. So, but when I come back to this line, I like this line, but I kind of wanted it maybe when they entered the classroom together, when they changed scenes from moving outside the building into the building together or something. Or it kind of feels like a reset, like we're going to shift gears. So at this point, I'm wondering if we're going to shift gears. And I think when I was reading it, I was like, oh, we're not really shifting gears. We're kind of continuing the conversation. And that made this line feel out of place. So these are feelings that are coming up as I'm reading, and I'm just vocalizing them. They don't necessarily imply anything. My author will know if they should do anything because they know what they intended. All right. So let's keep going. Willing to share? To a friend, yes. To a fed, can I say no? Okay, I like this line, okay? I kind of think there could be body language of hesitation. I kind of am imagining him being like, no, I want to say no. Can I say no? I feel like you could use some body language there. It's an opportunity. Definitely you don't have to, but there's a potential there. I'm just going to mark it just to make it easy for you to find should you choose to want to find that line and add a little body language if you wanted to. It's just to mark the spot. Why? That's not where I wanted it. That's not where I wanted it. Let's go down one. Delete. We're going to highlight the whole line just because I want it to go where I want it to go. And you could just delete it and move on and it'd be nothing at all, but it's just an opportunity. Sam chuckles, sets her badge and weapon aside. Yes, you can. Just us, teacher to former student. You have my word. Your designer drug comment, start there. Sure, he nods. I'm wondering, do we have it? We don't. It looked a little odd, but it's fine. Sure, he nods. Before I landed this job, I had some questionable offers. Chemistry expertise has its drawbacks. You were never the only one looking, just the last to notice. Reagan said, trust but verify. Might want to drop the trust part. Trust was the first thing to go, right after the illusion of safety. She watches him, catching the hesitation, her new status still a variable. It's between us. If it comes to it, I'll treat you as a CI, off the record. This was personal, not professional. Okay, so I think this is still Sam, because I don't have, I feel like if it's Sam, and I think it is, I feel like maybe it needs to go up here with this line, because when I read this line, I thought her, and then I kind of expected this dialogue to be his response, his reaction. And because it wasn't, and it seemed like it's her, I kind of feel like it might need to be up here with this line. So we're going to keep going. Section 2. With my skills, I did some cooking, not exactly garden variety legal materials. Following you thus far, Sam nods, understanding his hesitance. Distant lockers slam through the hall, muffled, rhythmic, as students start to trickle in. The element you thought I'd find, it caused problems in the process. Oh no, an uncooperative chemical. Tragic. Newton would be crushed. Simplicity is nature's way, unless someone made it that way. Like cold fusion, always just out of reach. Can you elaborate? If someone designed it like that, they wanted it found, or wanted people to fail trying. Oh, for goodness grief. Okay, that lovely sound is my bunny, and she is sliding down the steps. It sounds like she's falling, but she's gotten really good at just kind of flopping down the steps in this just sounds awful way. I'm going to check on her just in case. Hang on. Okay, she's fine. It's like I thought. She has this really weird way of getting down the steps. It's just really weird. I can't even describe it. Okay. It looks awful too. But, I mean, she's on her feet. She's not hurt. It's just weird. Okay. Can you elaborate? If someone designed it like that, they wanted it found or wanted people to fail trying. Nature doesn't make mistakes. People do. Apply enough heat, most elements turn liquid or malleable. This one didn't. I noticed it when I was using over-the-counter supplies. Kept getting remnants in the mix. These come from here, the Northwest. Checked that. Some didn't cause issues. You're right, it's the enteric coating used here. The ones shipped elsewhere didn't have it. A stack of textbooks near the window, dust jackets scrawled the doodles with names. Even in rigid classrooms, students left their mark. Okay, I like the detail, but I'm wondering, is she looking around? I'm guessing she's looking around. She's glanced away from him, and she's noticing these textbooks. Is this window like, I don't want to be super harpy on this. It's just, as I'm reading, I'm thinking she's looking at him and they're having this conversation, and this detail, which I love details and I always tell you to give them to me. But why is she noticing it? Is she looking around? Is it relevant? You're finally like giving me what I asked for, and I'm just wondering about. I'm not sure. I like the detail though, but I don't know if this is, why is it not working? Why is it not working? Is it working? Maybe it's fine, and maybe it wouldn't. I like it, but in my head I'm like, okay, so they're having this conversation, and now she's looking at the textbooks. And she's noticing the students, but I don't know that it's relevant. It's interesting. Are the details relevant? We use details when they set our scene. We use metaphors and similes and just all these different ways to pull in things that what they mean and what we want them to mean. Texture, and we tap into our senses, we make our story come to life. So I like the detail of the dust jacket scrawled with doodles and names. Like this is sitting behind him. So I like the detail. I just don't know. I'm going to leave it and we're going to keep going because I do like the detail. I just don't know how I feel about its placement, perhaps, maybe. And I may have spent too many minutes just contemplating it because I liked it. Does that make sense? I don't know. Let's keep going. Did you mention it to your employer? Yeah, he got me what I needed for a while. Then the contaminant started creeping back in. Okay, I got it. When you have a detail, all right, when you have a visual detail that has been noticed and you're in the middle of a conversation and you're noticing a detail, the internal thought about the detail needs to be relevant to the context. Okay, kind of maybe revealing how Sam feels about this conversation and where it's going. Okay, so sometimes something you see can trigger an emotion, a sensation. the same way it's one of your senses, sight is. So when you tap into a sense, you can get a sensation from it, and then having a thought accompanying it that really brings that sensation to be almost a zing, for your reader to have a feeling when they read those words together. Does that make sense? At this point, I'm liking the detail, but it's feeling a little bit like something is missing or out of place. And she does have this sensation of, hey, she sees their scrawlings on the jackets, and she's like, even in classrooms, students leave their mark, but what emotional impact does that have, and what is its relevance to this context of this conversation? And if I'm missing it, it's because sometimes when I'm in deep thought, as a beta reader, I do miss things. Someone is always going to miss something, and with every pass, you will find something else. Let's keep going. Did you mention it to your employer? Yeah, he got me what I needed for a while. Then the contaminant started creeping back in. Mind if I ask when this started? About 9 months ago. The clean materials, any idea where they came from? It'd be a guess. Okay, so let me see if I can figure out who is talking. Did you mention it to your employer? I feel like Sam is asking him this. Yeah, he got me what I needed for a while, and then the contaminant started creeping back in. And then Sam's asking questions. Okay, and then it's him. I feel like with this many back and forth and no dialogue tag, that you could throw in somewhere halfway through here, like an action. People, if he's sitting at a desk and she's leaning on his desk, like I said, you've got the papers, they can shuffle, they can fidget. He could play with, I don't know if he's nervous. I don't know about his sensations or what he's feeling or where his mind is. And we're not in his headspace, but, he could fidget with something, or if he's wanting to wrap up this conversation, I don't know how he feels about it. I'm just giving ideas. Depending on how he feels, you can figure out what a person does when they feel a certain way. If he wants to end this conversation, he may start looking toward a clock. Okay. You get the idea. That by that example, you get the idea of what I'm trying to say. So, in lieu of a dialogue tag, give him an action on one of his lines somewhere in here to make sure we know back and forth who is speaking. Obviously not every single line, we've been over this, but that's an idea of something you could use depending on how he feels. You can show where his mind is. Is he uncomfortable with this conversation? He might be a little squirmy in his chair. Okay. And you can show that, and that would be something you could do in this area right here. I'm just going to say musings and video, and we will keep going. Let's see. So the clean materials, any idea where they came from? It'd be a guess. An educated one, Sam smiles. I'd appreciate your thoughts. It's why I brought it to you. East Coast. The sharp tang of dry erase markers lingers, smothering any trace of old classroom dust. So we're peppering the scene of details she's noticing as she's having this conversation with him. I like these details. I'm not sure how I feel about them. Like I like what they are, what they say. If you're keeping alive the classroom, though, I think maybe I like it. I think it's new in this chapter. I'm thinking I like all this. I don't know. We've got my prior musings about placement and like what they say. But I do like the details you're choosing to put in there. Let's keep going. You don't have to answer. There could be repercussions. Was your employer tied to Torres operations there? Dedovich swallows hard, debating. She gets what she was after from his reaction. Okay, I tripped over that because there was two she's. There's nothing wrong with the sentence. I'm going to read it one more time. We're going to keep going. Dedovich swallows hard, debating. She gets what she was after from his reaction. So it's kind of implied that, she pushed a button and she got the response she thought she might. We're going to keep going. Through one of his reps here, I believe he was the real employer. How'd you know? Because she's better than you. Even Holmes said it. Eliminate the impossible. Whatever's left is the truth. You assumed no one watched the shadows. The trick isn't finding the answer. It's making them think they still have time before I do. I'm me with bureau access. She grabs a pencil, jots a date on paper, and turns it toward him. The soft click of Dedovich's red pen taps the silence, an old thinking habit as he studies the date. Nice. Love that. Just after this? Yes. And before that, the supply went quiet? Uh-huh. Am I in trouble here? Depends. How much did you like sleeping at night? Twain said it. Tell the truth, and you don't have to remember anything, unless you don't plan on being around to remember it. Memory's not the problem. Staying ahead of people who want to erase it is. If you shared this with anyone, maybe. She opens herself up, watching for deception. I wouldn't. Why would I, with what I was doing and my record? It's okay. The readings come back clear. Ever meet anyone in person? Deliveries, names, faces. You said one rep felt more in charge. To get materials, I went to a clinic or they sent me to a pharmacy. Script was filled under a fake name. No ID needed. He shifts, concerned building. Never met him, just a name. A door thuds closed down the hallway. A reminder the world outside keeps moving. Don't tell me. You have one. Always the same? Yes. When you need more, how do you communicate? And them back to you? Fewer specifics, the better. Okay, pausing, because we're slipping back in here. Okay, so I know this is Sam. He shifts. Nice. Good job. Okay. A door thuds down the hallway. Right. I actually like this, and I like the placement of it. Don't tell me you have one. Always the same. Yes. When you needed more, how'd you communicate? And then back to you. I am noticing a lot of M dashes in this chapter, like a lot. A lot. You mentioned in your notes that this was a phase. There was a period of time. Okay. So as I point that out, that I started noticing a bunch of them at this point is when I was like, wow, there's more. But your use of them seems appropriate. They are a bit much, I guess. I like that you pointed that out, that you noticed that. It's the same way when I go back and read some of my first pieces, and I'm like, I used a crutch words, like where all of a sudden you started reusing a word. I remember gently squeezed. Gently squeezed popped up in one of my stories, like in every single chapter, every couple of, like sometimes twice in a chapter. And I even found it in another writing piece kind of written that was not from that same story, written in the same time period. And so it's part of our learning process, and it's part of wherever our brain is in the time. And as we grow, we go back and we can look objectively upon what we did and really see our growth and be like, oh, I would do that differently now. Or, oh, I need to get that out of there. I can't believe I wrote that, but sometimes I leave, like I said, most of my first pieces, my fan fictions, they all have all my errors in them because I want to see my growth. Although I do love my stories and I feel like they could be better. Like, oh, when I read my very first fanfic, I cringe. It's one of my most popular, but I just cringe because I would do more of a slow burn now. But at the same time, I'm cringing because of that and because it feels a little bit fast. But at the same time, the dynamic between the two characters, it was supposed to be very intense. It had like a fire element to it. So they were like magnets, and because of that intensity, I knew it was going to move fast, and there was very little I could do to stop it. And that was kind of the same in the characters. But I think I could show more hesitation internally, and that would still work as well, even if they did still move quickly into the relationship. But as it is, it feels a little bit rushed, and it could be more fleshed out. But for what it is and where I began, it was a good start in writing, to be, if I was being kind to myself. Okay, let's see. So a door thuds close down the hall. A reminder, the world outside keeps moving. Don't tell me you have one. Always the same? Yes. When you needed more, how'd you communicate? And then back to you. Fewer specifics, the better. It's just weird. You're being, this is interesting. You're being what? Okay, I'm going to pause myself. I am like 4 minutes over because this has been a very interesting chapter for me. And I'm like, see, look, I'm really close to a break. And I was kind of thinking, how close am I to a break? I'm going to go ahead and keep reading this and stop right here. it's been an interesting chapter to read and crit and study. And it brings up, I like when I'm reading and new examples of situations come up and they stimulate the conversation, because that's the whole thing that I was going for in starting to do this, was that examples present themselves and there's different rules and different situations and how you would handle them, and they come up when we're reading. And so that's why this technique, this is why I like this video format. I've got a pretty good idea who you were working with. I'm not here to bust him. From a distance, we're adversarial allies. Lesser evil I can work with. We leave each other alone because some good comes out of it. It's not my area, so I don't have the details. If I get called to testify, I'm not lying. I've got a problem with that. She tilts her head, winks, and grins. Funny, that's exactly what someone about to jam him up would say. But hey, Kenny Rogers had it right. You know when to hold 'em, know when to fold 'em. Cold War diplomacy. Both sides pretending the knife's not in hand. Allies are just enemies with patience. Everyone's playing their own game. I just make sure I know the rules before the pieces move. He exhales. Okay. When I needed ingredients, a recipe was shared. Not telling you how, what for, or how often. Then someone new would contact me. Always different. They gave me a passphrase. I'd get a location. That enough? Or do you want how I got the finished stuff back to them? Fewer details the better, Sam smiles, lowers her head. This is bigger than you in cooking. I'll give you that much. When you walked away, she taps the date. Any blowback? Threats? Was it your call or theirs? A student's shadow passes the window, unaware of the weight behind the glass. Nice. Like that one. Very, very nice. Okay. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I grabbed it and kept doing things. Okay. It came from their side, but the same time, I was done. My wife didn't know. After Ricky shot himself, we took in his kids, my grandkids. I couldn't risk them, but it felt like they already knew. We parted clean. Was I wrong? If you were still breathing, you made the right call. I'm still standing, Elton John, or is that modern? We could go Sun Tzu, as he said the best victory needs no battle, but history says escape only counts if no one follows. With who I think you were dealing with? No. Did Ricky know what you were doing? Okay. And here I'm going to stop myself. I'm going to highlight my little spot. I like that we're ending at the end of a section. So that was chapter 19 and sections 1 and 2. And so my next one we will pick up on chapter 19 will be section 3. Read 2 of chapter 19. All right, so that wraps us up for today. I will see you guys next time on Mystery Red Reads.